Welcome back to Let's Talk Race and Ireland. I'm your host, Harrison Paul. A lot on the news I have need to catch up on. I was struggling with hay fever for a little bit. I tried to shoot this video and really was wrestling the whole video, so we had to delete that one. But we back again and we're here again. We're feeling fresher by the grace of God. But we got some big topics to talk about. We got not the general, but the local elections that happened in Ireland. There were a lot of far right who, found themselves winning these elections. But we also found some black people coming into power. We'll put a picture on the screen of each person that actually was, did very well and found themselves winning the elections. We also want to talk about Saka. Yes, Saka, the Nigerian boy, who actually yet again was the headline of England's loss in their friendly match against Iceland. Now, this was odd because Saka only came on for the last 20 minutes of the game, and we already know British media, whenever it is a win that Saka hugely contributed to, whenever it's a win that they hugely contributed to, you will find them using a picture of Harry Kane or a picture of, of Grealish or anything like that. And we understand what the British media is like. They like to, whip up people, and that's their job. And then we have, Rhasidat, another Irish runner who did very well. She was a part of the relay race that they got their gold medal, and she also came second place in the 400 meter. So I brought all these topics together because there is a topic I want to discuss. It is the topic of identity. And I need you guys to stick with me today because today will be a different style of episode. I usually come on here and I have a strong conviction about something and I'm sure about something and I can't wait to give it to you and put it down and lay it down on the show. But I'm going to be honest and transparent today, and it's something I'm still trying to figure out. And although I have some strong convictions, I'm going to put on the table for us to discuss and have a debate about it in the comment section and for anybody who watches this. And we have the dilemma, right, guys, where we are, I want to say, like homeless children, Africans. And stick with me. This is a lot we're going to get through here today. So what do all those people have in common? Well, they're migrated, they're immigrants, right? And the real question then is, why is it that we find ourselves hugely wanting to represent foreign places in which we've emigrated to? Now, someone who left a comment also, there's I should have mentioned her actually, the first in Belfast, there was a black lady who was elected into power. I'll put a picture on the screen also. Elected into power, which is a huge moment in, I think it was Northern Ireland. Yeah, a huge moment. So when we look at this, and someone, a dude in the comments said, and it was a black guy who said this, I don't know about, people who, Africans really coming into power in Europe, it shouldn't be. Which was kind of odd, for him to say that being a black person. And then we have to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to this topic. And that is, we are to a certain degree like lost children. But this is of no fault of our own. Not only has our country been upended, and was it upended historically, and even when we think about neocolonialism, it has also, the PR for Africa has been terrible. And that was the whole point of the narrative, was to destroy the meaning to be African. And growing up as an African, one of the understandings that we had that we're actually slowly coming out of now, I don't know if our parents so much had this, but I know our parents must have been, and they were, if anybody remembers, majorly proud of your child who comes here and who becomes Irish or who becomes British or who becomes French. And I think as children, we absorb that because when we would discuss with our friends, and I remember, we would always cling to, that piece of European in which we were, so some guy would be like, oh, my mom, she's French, or another brother would be like, oh, I'm not, clinging to any part of, one brother would be like, I'm Belgian for real. And we would cling to these European nationalities because it was more luxurious than being African. I think African was like a gimmick at times, if I'm being very, very honest. I don't feel to the core of who we were, we really enjoyed being African. And I don't blame, even Burna Boy said in his clip, it wasn't always cool to be Nigerian.
The intro to City Boys is the audio from J Hus's Instagram stories.
I'm not even an ugly you. I'm a sexy you, you understand?
What made you go with this as the intro?
Because I feel like he was speaking for all of us Black African boys. There was a time in life when we weren't popping. You had to be a light-skinned boy. Did you not have Chris Brown on your list?
I used to love that man.
Let's be real. We weren't popping.
Yeah.
We were getting called all types of names. It is what it is, because now...
Gal all over the globe.
J Hus called himself Mr. Ugly.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
But there was ugly. A reason for that.
Right.
That was the view that society had of us. Mm-hmm. The whole narrative has changed.
Of course.
And it's like we're not looking in the mirror like,
Actually...
So the whole time, they were trying to finesse us. We've always known our worth. It's everyone else that didn't. And then someone keeps telling you something, even if you know it's not true.
Yeah.
It's like the fact that they keep telling you it's in your head. Whether you accept it or not, it's like it's still in your head. Now it's about you accepting it or not. Yeah. But it's not easy to be strong like that.
I hear it.
I don't really blame us for being like that because the narrative upon Africa was that of people who were uncivilized and underdeveloped. So this thing and this narrative follows you, and I was only saying to someone recently, it follows you into the workplace, it follows you into day-to-day life, and you feel that society, when they view you, they're viewing you through the lens of the narrative that was already fed to them through the media. So you find yourself as a Black person trying to jump over those hurdles. And you're constantly trying to beat a narrative. You're trying to beat a poverty narrative. You're trying to beat a stupid narrative. You're trying to beat an uncivilized or unkept or underdeveloped. You're constantly coming up against this dark cloud that hangs over your head as an African, a Nigerian, or a Ghanaian, or a Zimbabwean. And being European seems like an easy ticket out of that. So when I find us in situations where, Saka is being rejected and being thrown back and forth, and he misses a penalty, he's the worst ever. He scores and did us great with the World Cup that took them, and he had a really good World Cup that one gone, Oh, I love him, and they celebrate the goal. Let's put it that way. They may not be saying, "Oh, we love Saka because he's Black," or like we celebrate the goal, right? And they enjoy the goal, right? And my thing is this, right? For anybody who doesn't know, I was raised in Ireland, but I'm born in the UK, so I definitely straddle on either side, and I'm back living in the UK now again. But I always. Forgive me, because this is where I'm gonna, I'm gonna ask you guys I'm gonna pick your brain with this. It's like that rejection, and we think about the racist innuendo about where are you really from, and how much we hate that. That rejection, I at first glance, I'm like, well, if they don't want us, as an activist, as a radical, you know what I do here. I'm like, okay, cool. Anyway, I'm African at the end of the day, and that's the demeanor that I want to take up. I want to say you're gonna have as Robert Mugabe famously said, tell Blair he can have his Britain. You can have your thing. I'm gonna be who who I am at the end of the day. And then on another hand, I'm thinking about it before I don't just come on here and jab, Babylon guys. I really digest and meditate on things, and it comes from a place where I've really thought about things, right? So that's my first glance, and I'm like, you know what, I can have it, or I've been on this thing, I'm not Irish anyway, and I'm not this anyway, and you have it, I'm African anyway. And then another side of you has to think about the settlers, the settlers. You know, there are Irish people now who still identify as Rhodesian or Zimbabwean. There are Irish people who still identify as Southern African, South African. You know, and being a white South African doesn't come with this, how do I say it? They own that. I don't know if that's the best way. Almost South Africa has become a white person's. In many ways, South Africa has become white. It's not like they're a visitor. If you look at a white South African, you're like, no, they conquered that side of South Africa. That is theirs. So when you look at a white South African, you don't get this notion that he or she is trying to cling and can be rejected or can be booted out. You don't feel that sense of Elon Musk can be booted out. It belongs to him, whether we like it or not. Don't you get that feeling? And we just have to complain about it. And when I look at the events of history and the events of current day, and I'm going to start by playing a tape to better contextualize this. I'm going to first play a tape by Robert Mugabe. And I just seen it quite recently, and I really, really enjoyed it because, again, we like to wish away the past. And he says that here. But even I'm looking at him, and we like to act like this doesn't happen. But this is going to help us contextualize what I'm saying here. Let's listen to this.
I'd be interested myself to know a situation where those who fought on Hitler's side are being given pensions by any country. But Zimbabwe is doing that. And we have been paying millions and millions of dollars per year by way of pensions to British settlers who fought us and killed us yesterday. A moral duty we don't have at all. But because we accept that the past is gone. They served a colonial regime. They didn't serve us, these people. Most of the years for which they qualified for pension were UDI years. But we don't look at that. Britain should not provoke us into examining our relations with them. And ladies and gentlemen, if really the issue is that we happen to have British settlers here, or part of our population comprises those people Mrs. Thatcher and our government regard as our charges, and which people must therefore not ever be touched by us, because if we arrest some of them on valid basis, Britain becomes annoyed, threatens us with the withdrawal of aid. Should Zimbabwe really continue to have a basis of that nature, which will lead to a conflict? Have we done wrong by encouraging these people to remain in our country? Does Mrs. Thatcher want them in Britain? If so, she should let us know. We will facilitate their going to Britain, so problems will not confront us tomorrow.
You know, when you look at things from this perspective, after great consideration, we see people who manage to have their cake and eat it. And as frustrated as I want to be, as angry, as rebellious, as no, I don't care who you are, I don't care, keep your, there's a part of me that's come to understand that you cannot allow people to do this. You cannot allow people to have it their way. Because of how they have destroyed Africa. And I'm going to have to play this clip really quickly right now So you understand. Again, I always look through all my episodes. I always give evidence of neocolonialism. And this is now where I point towards the Irish a little bit more. And I want you to understand that you are a part of the EU. We know already history. You guys were involved in colonialism. Yes, you were. I said on my other episodes, I don't have time to get through it right now. You were involved in slavery in Montserrat. You were involved in slavery in Jamaica. This is all facts online. You can go and find it, public knowledge. But let's talk about today, shall we? And let's talk about neo-colonialism, the fact that you guys are part of the EU. There's a reason why EU is beneficial. How can we prove that? Because Britain just, you know, we can talk about Brexit and how much that has actually cost them. So what are the benefits of being in the EU? Well, let's watch this clip and let's figure out how.
Is the EU funding the ongoing crisis in Congo? At the end of February, the EU signed a $19 billion deal with the Rwandan government in the hopes of acquiring more raw materials for green energy. Seems innocent, right? Well, it would be if Rwanda wasn't currently tied to a rebel group in the Democratic Republic of the Congo called M23. M23 is fueling the ongoing crisis in Congo, which has displaced nearly 7 million people as numerous groups fight for control over the mineral-rich regions. The US has pulled military aid from Rwanda, but continues to provide other types of aid. And the EU, despite it all, signed this deal, ignoring Rwanda's role in the ongoing violence. So why did the EU move forward with this? Maybe they thought we wouldn't notice.
This, and of course we know sad news, Claire Daly was just removed from, she was just removed from the EU, the only person who spoke to the exploitation of Africa and tried her best to expose it. But my point is this, guys. For people who suck the blood and the life out of Africa, Europe, then on top of that, they want to dictate after you've had to flee your land because of the damage that's been gone on there, because of the dictators that they have implemented in order for them to continue to benefit and to exploit Africa, a system that they have and is very much intentional by Western powers, and that they should I say safeguard using these world organizations to protect themselves, to seem as though they're just following the rules that are set against Africa, rules that are set in order for Africa not to rise. And then we come here to make a better life, and we come here to not just for any reason. A lot of us come here on some real desperate things. Even if we be honest amongst ourselves in the Black community, we hail our parents for having taken the risk. And, I brought you here. Your parents, they brought you here. It's like, oh, the promised land. And then when you're here and you identify with this country, you've lived by the law, you've worked hard, you've gone to college, you've everything. At the end of the day, you never stop being a second-class citizen. The other day I won't say where I live, but I was in I of course I had to go find some, local honey. Went to go find some local honey. When I was going to get local honey, I had to go to like a farm shop, and we all know those farm shops are quite expensive. They're not like, any other grocery store, like an Aldi or whatever. Everything here is pretty much organic, right? So everything's quite expensive, and you can tell. I went in there quickly on a Sunday, and you could tell the type of people who are in that shop. Of course, who obviously, and I went in there and I asked if they had honey. I actually called them prior to me getting to the shop, Tilda and I. And we got there. They said, yes, we have the honey. I find out it was the same honey that I got in another other local farm shop. But I was just trying to make sure that I'm getting as local honey as possible, And so that was, I found out that they're selling this exact same honey. And after that, Tilda and I are in the shop, and this dude is following us. Now, bear in mind, guys, this shop is just filled with, probably great quality potatoes, great quality, sweet potatoes, and, onions and whatnot. But this is not like, what are you going to steal, an apple? you know? But these people were watching us. Like the whole way, every time I looked over my shoulder, you know, it was like they were watching. They'd never seen black people before, and they were watching. And I'm there, and I walk out of the shop, and, you know, both of us walk out of the shop, and, you know, I love being with a black woman because she always gives you another black angle from a female perspective, and it's just amazing. You know, I think I've said it before. I always say it. But she just goes, I feel icky. And I'm like, wow, that is the phrase. That is the phrase, babe. You feel, because you've been criminalized. Someone slapped a ghetto costume on you. Like literally. And you feel whatever ghetto. You feel, as I say, down there. You feel like a second-class citizen. And you're asking yourself, you know, for any black person, you know this feeling. It's like, I wash my face. I'm a good citizen. I clean up. So what more do you want from me? What more do you want for you to look at me and understand now this ain't no thug? Look at the lady I've walked in with. Well, me and my lady gonna come here and steal some oranges and apples and potatoes? So you come here and at best, and you know what? Southern Africans are not treated like that. They are not. In fact, they go there and they can climb into power. Because the narrative around being white was not destroyed the way it was destroyed around being black. Okay, now there may be a stigma, or they may feel there's a stigma around thinking every white person is racist or whatever it may be, but at least you don't know what it's like to have a stigma to say you're incompetent. Just by looking at you, you're just as much as at risk of thieving a farm shop. You know, this is just an example of what we face in the workplace, in the hospital, everywhere we go. And what I'm realizing is that we cannot, as frustrated, as much as I want to tell Saka, play for who you play for, as much as I want to tell Rashid, run for Nigeria, as much as I want to tell all these politicians, you know, maybe don't run for Irish elections, or as much as I want to tell, you know, Saka, play for Nigeria, it would be wrong to allow people to understand that you can have your cake and eat it. And then we have the other argument, though. If we are not uplifting Africa, if we're not making Africa something proud to represent, who will? We see that Mason Greenwood found himself having to play for, you know, Jamaica again, and we wish him the best of luck there. Of course, he's a young boy, he made his mistakes. We don't condone them, but I believe a young brother deserves to bounce back. And we know that Peter Crouch had something very ugly to say about Lukeman. And I just want to get it, you know, up on the screen here about playing for England, right? Check this out. Peter Crouch said this: if Ademola Lookman had been patient, he would have played for England instead of Nigeria. So he made a mistake playing for Nigeria. And then this is where I struggle, guys. If we are not going to restore the name of Africa, then who's going to do it? Here is a young man. Let's unpack that tone. Let's unpack that tone. Like, we're the promised land. Why would you want to represent your African country? You should watch my last video. Actually, I put up on the screen. That African country. Why would you want to like? You had a chance to be with what's white is right, the premium, to put on that white jersey of superiority, and you went to go and represent Nigeria. So I leave that question on the table, guys, and I say, how do we combat that? How do we combat that? I am actually asking for help. How do we combat that? How do we tell him, actually, no, you're representing Ireland, or Europe isn't the end all be all. Or what? So Mbappe wins at life because he represents France and doesn't represent Cameroon. We have to begin to understand this, but at the same time, France don't deserve to have. I just seen an image and I put up on the screen of was Mbappe meeting the president. Not meeting, he's already met him. The president of Macron, and the way he shakes his hand is so casual, and Macron really looks so happy to see him, and I'm just laughing like, wow. If only Mbappe's ancestors could see this. If only the African ancestors could see the ones who are whips and chains, that the president is happy to, almost starstruck and just proud of him. But what I love about it is that Mbappe is not saying, oh, at your service. Mbappe is saying, yeah, I'm the president of France. And there's something about that then that turns me on a little bit. There's something about that. I'm like, okay, that could work. Because I can't allow them to have their cake and eat it. Yes, the legend of France, the hero of France is a black man. Yes, the hero of France or the hero of England can be a black boy from Nigeria. Or the hero of Ireland. And I think Ireland would do well if they weren't gatekeeping. The way they gatekeep so hard, really. They've only started letting 2 black players in. But I grew up playing football in Ireland, and the amount of talented black players who don't get a look in because they ain't Irish. And black footballers will understand this. Now I think things are changing quite a little bit. But for many generations, a Sean or an Aiden is going to get that pick over you. And black boys knew they were way better than those boys of football. So we have this heartbreak, but let me know, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. How do we deal with this Peter Crouch type superiority? How do we deal with them when they say, oh, just drop that Nigeria, just drop that Zimbabwe, just drop that Africa? You should be proud to be a part of this. Don't worry. You leave that. Come and wear our jersey. And then we are so happy to wear the jersey. So a part of me wants to say, I'm African. And then a part of me like, oh, we want our country back. And then we have South Africans who take it like it's theirs. No problem. They're South African. Elon Musk, no questions. No one blinks an eyelid. No one questions. No one says send him back to wherever he came from. So then I say, no. You can't have it both ways. So tell me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Just please let me know, what is the best demeanor? How do we deal with this? How do we deal with this? Thank you so much for watching. And I'm on a mission for you.